Well, good afternoon, everybody here in the East Coast. It's Tom from Came to Believe Recovery, welcoming you to our Friday version of Recovery Live, where we talk about everything around addiction and recovery. I want to welcome our guests from the West Coast, too. It's 9 in the morning. It's good morning for them, and it's maybe good evening for our guests in the UK. Melissa McManus is with us already, and she is in Wales watching us. Christina Grant's with us. Just want to welcome again everybody today to Recovery Live. We've had a really active couple weeks with the retreats over in London, and then the Bronx retreat that went on last weekend. I know you guys heard a lot about that. We've been talking about it for the last few weeks, about doing this retreat at the rescue mission in the South Bronx. And we ended up doing it this weekend, and it was a great success. And today we're going to take a lot of the time and talk about it. I've got the team, some of our team members that were with us on the weekend coming on to talk about the experience. I want to give a plug out for our virtual retreat coming up in January, guys. Virtual retreat registration is open. It's from January 6th to the 8th. It runs just like one of our on-ground retreats, except you get to do it from the armchair of your living room. It's Friday night, and then it's 5 or 6 hours Saturday, and it's a few hours on Sunday. And we do take you through all the steps. And many of our leadership and people that have gotten recovered started with the virtual retreat in 2020 when we were doing them during the pandemic. And one of my guests today, actually, her first retreat was a virtual retreat, and she has grown with the organization, has come to on-ground retreats, and joined us in the Bronx and taught the steps in Spanish for the first time in Came to Believe history. So I want to welcome Deyra from
LA.
LA, but she's really in Beverly Hills.
I'm going to Beverly Hills. I'm in Culver City, but tomorrow I'll be in Beverly Hills.
And we
But
just
thank
like
you,
to
Tom.
say, we just
Thank you
like to
for
say
having
Beverly
me.
Hills.
Sounds better, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so
What's the
much for
weather
having
like
me.
out there today, Deyra?
It's a little chilly today. It's like in the 60s, 65. I think that's what it is right now. Not as cold as New York, but
No,
it's
New
a
York was
little chilly.
cold. I want to welcome some more of our guests today. Taryn, good morning. Taryn's here. Taryn's joining us from California, too. She's down there in the southern part, more southern than you are, Deyra. And Doc Roth, Las Vegas. How you doing, Doc? Hanging in there with us. And Dale is joining us on that. I'm sure he's going to join us on the show here in a minute, too. Tim Lewick from Orlando. Great to see you guys. Carrie is on. Mike and I are on. 27 here. It's 27 degrees where they are in Indiana, Deyra.
Wow. I don't think I can do that. It's too cold for me. I would freeze.
And our other friend from Florida, our longtime Came to Believe leader, who has now been traveling with me all around the country doing these retreats, and has grown and even in a greater position of leadership, and has become much more involved in everything that we're doing around the country. My buddy from Christmas, Florida, Dale Barker, is with us today.
Hi, Dale.
Hey, how you doing?
We have little internet issues with Dale, but are you there, Dale?
Internet issues with. I hear.
Well, we'll keep going. My experience in the weekend, guys, was,
We'll keep
you know,
going. 'Cause
I had a lot of a little bit of anxiety when it started because I didn't know whether what was going to happen. Actually, it was a different situation than most. And city teams, we went in. We had more leadership with us from California. We had a little bit better in with the group there, with some of the guys that had been already very active in city teams. So, there was we had a ramp in at city teams more so than in the Bronx. Now, I had made contact with Father Ignatius, so I had met him several times, but I just hadn't been there before with the team. We hadn't actually presented it. Nobody had, nobody had been there in the Came to Believe world. So these guys had no idea what we were about. So, I had that little bit of anxiety. We're bringing this team in from all over the world, our A team, to go in to present this retreat for really the first time. I mean, we've been in New York City before, but it was many years ago, 25 or 30 years ago. Emilio Mesa, if you guys ran a couple of retreats in Brooklyn, but it's been probably, I would say it's been 30 years since we've done anything in New York City. And for us to do this and to do it the way we did was really to me. And when we pulled around the corner, I know, and I said this to Deyra because we were all in the car, we hit that corner and I said, there it is. And we looked at the place with the chain link fence and the barbed wire on top of it, on the tip of it. I was afraid the whole team was going to be like, oh yeah, no, we're not doing this. Take us someplace else. Because guys, the difference too between city teams and St. Anthony's shelter is that we stayed there. We stayed in the shelter. And in California, we went back to hotels. They didn't have places for us to stay. So we went back to hotels. But we stayed in the shelter. And so that was a little bit nerve-wracking too, because how was that going to be? I had seen the facilities, but they were not, it's a step above. I'm not even sure they were as good as when I had it in the Army, but it ended up being okay.
I agree. I think it wasn't as bad as I thought in the beginning when you asked me about this retreat. It wasn't. It wasn't as bad. I did not mind it at all. I think we were just there to do our job, and we did get the job done. And everybody was welcoming, and I had a great time. It was quite an experience for me.
We went in on Friday, and we met the guys when we went in for dinner, and I remember doing the paper icebreaker that I do. You remember that, Deyra? And not sure how it was going to go over with all these guys. I always get the eye rolling when we do the paper thing because everybody's like, this is silly, one of those things.
Yeah.
But it really did connect the guys because they, throughout the weekend, people would say to me something about the paper, something about being individual, something about this, something about that. So we started off with that. And then, guys, the big deal was that we were going to do this in Spanish. Now, Deyra's never done this before, guys. She had never done this in English. She hadn't done it. Now, she took people through the steps, right? And you've been sponsoring some people.
I've been doing it one-on-ones with some sponsees, but I haven't done it in front of a crowd or, I haven't taught the steps like that, even in Spanish, English or Spanish. So this was my first time doing it.
And so we sent her off kind of out into the wolves and we separated. We took the English-speaking people upstairs, and Deyra and Ashley took the Spanish people downstairs. And, it was pretty straightforward for us because we've done this before many, many times. And the culture thing and the English, it was written in English. It was written from these guys that were in Midwest of America. So the grammar, the culture, the whole thing around the program overlaid over, English and American, I guess, culture very easily. And what I was surprised to hear Deyra say, and maybe you could talk about this a little, Deyra, is that it wasn't just the actual translation of the words that was necessary. It was some of the ideas, the way they're presented in English needed to be adjusted a little, right?
Correct. It wasn't just like a translation word by word. It was more like the culture and getting to know these guys on a deeper level. Um, when I started practicing the steps in Spanish, it even hit me differently. I'm bilingual. I'm from Nicaragua, so my first language is Spanish. And when I was going through the steps in Spanish, I've done the steps only in English. When I did them in Spanish, it just gave me a different feel. I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just a different more of a deeper level type of impact that it created on me. And I felt like when I taught the steps, I had to be culturally on the same level as these guys, meet them where they're at, like, which is our topic today. Like, I had to do that, for these guys.
So that was really something, guys, that we didn't realize, and it's really opened our eyes as to where we and how we need to go about this. When we are moving into other cultures and other languages, I thought all it was translating it into English. We got the Legacy Guide translated, and Deyra and Ashley come in, and they just do it in Spanish. And then Deyra came down one morning before we started and said what she just said now. She said, guys, it really, when I read it in Spanish, it brought back some memories. It brought back things. It was more than just, it had much more of an impact than just language. And we all kind of sat there and said, wow, there's power in being able to translate this power we didn't even realize, presenting it in not just someone else's language, but in their culture.
Yeah, no, totally. And going back to the icebreaker that you used, Tom,
Mm-hmm.
everyone there was just so like intimidated by us when we came in. Everybody was like, who are these guys, like. And when you did the icebreaker exercise, everyone was having fun. All of a sudden everyone's playing with the paper. It was just a great way to start the whole retreat. I really like that you did that.
Yeah, Viv said he's going to do it at Hertz in England next month, or when they do it in January, I think. It does tend to connect everybody. So Dale's with us. I think it looks like you moved to a different place.
Well, I had to get on my laptop for whatever reason. My PC was not functioning with the technology of this program. But it's nice to have a solution. I found the solution.
So I guess you've been listening to us, and we were talking about, the initial day when we showed up at the mission, and how we all felt about it, and that I was kind of in angst because it was different than when we went to city teams because we were staying there, and Deyra was just relaying the idea that they were a little intimidated by us. I think when we got there, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, part of addiction is isolating you, and fear is your motivation a lot of times. And so who are we, these people coming in? And I remember the first time I went to a retreat, and all the happy people made me very uncomfortable. So, we walk around with a certain amount of happiness everywhere we go now, because we're not in that addiction anymore. And yeah, I'm sure it was a little, but it didn't take them very long for them to realize that, once they heard our little 5-minute at the beginning about each of us, they realized that we were just like them, just a little farther along.
And that's for sure the connection. And Casera just posted, the opposite of addiction is connection. And one of the things that Father Ignatius had told us was isolation was a big issue with these guys at the shelter. They were very protective of themselves, almost a prison mentality. Don't connect with anybody, don't become friends with anybody, don't do anything like that.
And even the Spanish guys were even more isolated because they can't speak the language, so they feel like they can't relate to anybody else. And I feel like the retreat did that for all of them. It connected everybody. They were all part of one family, one team at the end when we left, so that was amazing.
Yeah, as we get through, let's revisit that, Deyra, because on Saturday when those two guys came up and shared that Came to Believe in Spanish, it showed clearly that this thing that we were trying to not have, which was more separation, because it just wasn't any way to do it, guys, then separate them out in Spanish in another room than us. So that could just be another, we're separating them again, right? And they felt separated, but it didn't end up being that way. And we did try to bring them together wherever we could, wherever it made sense. We had everybody in the same room, but it was hard to do. And I thought I grew something too, you guys, when I went in. And when I had been first going to the shelter, he said, Father Ignatius, they take their cell phones from the guys, right? So when they go in, they have to turn their cell phone in. And I thought to myself, well, that's not fair and that's not right. They should have their phones, a little bit in the back of my head, it's a little, blah, 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 blah. So we were sitting on Friday night, and I think you were standing there, Dale, or it was Viv standing there with me. We were talking to Father Ignatius, and we looked around the room, and I was not aware of the isolation that really does exist, because I don't live there. Like he's saying, they isolate, and it's a big problem. He pointed around the room, and there were 2 or 3 groups of the guys talking, and he said they wouldn't be doing that if they had their phones. And I thought, well, there you go, right? How many of us sit around and we're all looking at our phones when we're all sitting in the room together, right? Mm-hmm. So this breaking this isolation is a big deal. And us being able to go in, and right after we did those 5-minute stories, you're right, things began to change.
And your icebreaker exercise.
Icebreaker exercise.
That was great.
I'm thinking about the first night and how much they opened up to us, and the comment that Father Ignatius made afterwards. What did he say, Dale? He said, this one guy has been there 4 months, and they weren't able to get him to share anything.
Right.
And we finished, and the guy just blabbing, sharing his whole position. He couldn't believe that just that short amount of evening program had this guy comfortable enough to really share where he was at, right?
Yeah, it has always amazed me how easy it is for me to talk to someone with addiction issues compared to someone who has never had to deal with it, because I talk the same language. And it's only that I've found a solution to the problems that I had that my life's changed. But yeah, it's a well-known fact that a person that has been through an experience can really relate to someone that has a similar experience. The whole shipwreck thing, we survived the shipwreck to get, and we have something to talk about, and it's a special bond that we have.
And the speed of the program began to get their attention too, I think, the way that we do it. And we began to get them sold on it after the first night. I don't know about you guys, but the big change that I saw, well, certainly was Saturday afternoon. And after they came back, and when we were sitting around the campfire, because they had a little fire pit, guys, believe it or not, in the South Bronx, out in their courtyard. We set it a fire pit, and basically this was called Fort Apache, the Bronx. That's the section of the Bronx that we were in. And who wants to tell the story about what that one guy shared about calling his daughters?
Well, we were just kind of going around the circle, and people were sharing some of what had happened to him over the weekend. And I had talked about the whole steps 8 and 9, where you make a list of people and that you've harmed, and then you go about making amends to those people, kind of cleaning your side of the street, just sweeping away the wreckage of the past that you can. And he piped up and said that it was hard. It was really hard for him, but he called his daughters, and they're older. You know, they're adult daughters. They're not children. And he said he apologized for, you know, what had happened. And I mean, he had a typical story of addiction and isolation and losing everything. Ended up in a homeless shelter, and his daughters told him, "Dad, don't worry about it. We're just glad you're getting help. You know, we're just looking forward to having you back in our lives." And I mean, that's a lot, you know, to have to share to a bunch of people that you've been living with for months, that you've been complaining and griping, and the change in this guy was miraculous. There's no really other way to put it for me.
He seemed like so free, you know, he so much relief that brought to him. You know,
Well, that's what it was. He got freed from it. It'd been a huge burden on him. What did they think about him? He had guilt. He had this. He had that. And all they basically said was, "Dad, we love you. Just keep doing it." You know, it absolutely released him, and he was a different person, even more so come Sunday. You know, with this hope and that burden. And how many of us do that? We know that in addiction, we get in our own heads. How many we overthink stuff, and we think, and we create these scenarios that don't even exist, and we tend to not confront anybody. I know I was that way, and still can be that way today, where I'll let something build up too long and then turn out that it wasn't a big deal anyway, and it would have been a less of a deal if I'd handled it right at the beginning and then held off. But that was just one, guys, for you out there in our listener land, one of the stories of the weekend of people who had a breakthrough and took action right away. We talked a lot about taking action, right? And he took action. Jonathan Klein's with us. He's from Long Island. Randy Oliver. Hey, Randy, how are you? We'll be back on the radio with Randy next week. And oh, yeah, we got all the high. So then we moved on through. So by Saturday, Deyra, weren't you kind of feeling more comfortable? Because I know that, I mean, guys, let me just tell you this. If Deyra ever felt uncomfortable, nobody knew it. If she was scared, because she went in like a rock star with great confidence, and not one point showed that she was nervous or anything. But tell us about that. Were you? You can't hear you.
I just jumped right in the pool and did what I had to do. I got comfortable getting uncomfortable, right? Which is what we do. Which is what we do, right? This is what we live by. So I knew it was going to be a challenge, but I just went for it and just wanted these guys to open up and listen to the message, listen to what we had to say. Showed some sort of if I seemed uncomfortable or unsure of myself, they weren't gonna do it, like you said. So I had to step up to the plate and really be an example to them. And most of them were very thankful at the end. They were like, "Thank you so much for being here. You know, this was amazing." I mean, their lives changed forever. And to me, that's my gift, you know. But I had to do the work, right? I had to jump in and break the ice. If I didn't do that, they wouldn't have done it, like you said. So I'm very thankful and grateful for that. God gave me the strength.
He, you know, when I was talking to Deyra ahead of time, you know, she said, "Oh no, I'm fluent in Spanish and this and that and the other thing," and I'm like, "Okay, that's good." I mean, I don't know, but it turns out, guys, she's very fluent and was better than all of them at translating. The whole place was defaulting to Deyra to do the translating. Even the guys that worked in the shelter that could speak some Spanish, in the end, it was Deyra did almost all the translating towards the end, because they all said she does it the best.
It's my first language, so you know, it was just almost going back home in a way for me. I'm from Nicaragua. Some of these guys were from like Venezuela, Puerto Rico. I mean, they were just from third world countries, and going back there, and it's almost like it took me back to my roots, you know. So yeah, I could relate to them and the culture, definitely. So it wasn't just the language thing, it was also understanding the culture that really helped me get through and push through, so they could open up and be willing to listen to this message, you know. And as we went along, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they were opening up, surrendering to God, and towards the end they were just on fire for what we were doing. So it was great.
It was a step further from the door that we talk about standing outside the door, guys. And because Sarah put that up before. And, you know, my vision is going so far away from the door that we almost can't find it. But that wouldn't do any good. But I mean, you know, when I went out there the first time and they said, you know, Father Ignatius said, you know, we have some people here that only speak Spanish, nothing else. And so there was a thought of, well, we'll just do it for the English this time, and then we'll see what we can do the next time. And guys, you know, I talk about standing outside the door, and I said, wait a minute, we got to figure out a way to do this. Why do they not get the message? Are they so far from the door that they're not even allowed? They don't get the answer. And I felt like that was just not something that was right. And so that's where this effort came around to try to get Deyra and to get Ashley to come and do it. And it's a real big plus here that we were able to touch these guys who were further from the door than even the English guys.
Yeah.
Because think about that. They come here without a, you know.
Yeah. One of the guys that I worked with, his name was Urbano, right? He was 25 years of alcoholism. And he said, I've been up and down, relapse after relapse. And I finally feel like you guys came and you guys gave me that strength that I needed. I was on the brink of relapsing again. And this guy is, you know, he was just miserable when we showed up. You could see how isolated he was, the way he like was behaving. When we left, this guy was confident. He was one of the guys that shared in front of everyone. I mean, this guy was on fire. He's so thankful that we were there. I mean, seeing that big change in someone is just priceless, you know. And like Tommy's saying, it would be so hurtful and heartbreaking that if we couldn't get to them, you know, if we couldn't get this message to them.
And the other guys that were there were as far from the door as the Spanish guys in some cases. You know, they grew up with a lot of, they didn't have all the opportunities that some of us have. And we were talking about it, that, you know, when I got sober, I had a whole list of opportunities that were available to me once I got sober. I had to go do it, but I could go to college right away. I could do. And some of these people that were in here, they don't have those kind of opportunities right off the bat. And so our message had to be one of hope for them, but we had to be careful not to set the bar so high that it was just as much of a, you know, like a, well, you guys are coming in here so far beyond us that we don't see a way to get there, which could have been. But I think we were pretty good, successful about not being too setting a bar that was so high that it was out of reach, that would backfire on us and actually make it, you know, just backfire.
Yeah. No, like you said, meet them where they're at. So like we met them where they were at, and that, I think that's really what we had to do. And like you said, just having this opportunity for these guys was amazing. I think the follow-up is going to be great too, because this guy was telling me that he can't go to meetings. Every meeting he goes to, they just beat them up and they treat him like really bad. So he doesn't even want to go to meetings at all. So he doesn't have a lot of resources. He doesn't have a big book. So, you know, we gave them a lot of hope, definitely. And I think we gave them a lot of hope and strength. But now I think it's a matter of also checking on them, and hopefully we can do that. And like, you know, seeing how their progress is going and stuff. I would love to know how that's going with them.
Yeah, I tell you, having that legacy guide in Spanish for them to have and follow along, that was an amazing accomplishment. Tom. You guys put that together. Deyra translated it, and y'all got them printed up, and it was able to hand them out to the guys, and for them to keep forever. I mean, that they have the information that we presented to them, word for word, in their language, in their native tongue. So that is so impressive to me that I don't speak Spanish, and so I've never known how to relate to someone who can't understand what I say. But it's so comforting to know that this is starting to happen, where the big book is printed in every language in the world. This has started to happen where the program of recovery that came from the big book is going to be presented in the same manner, can be done in the same manner. Just takes effort and some money for the materials. So I was quite impressed to be part of something so monumental in my mind, that a worldwide organization would do such a seemingly impossible task to me. And look how it worked out when we went. The reaction from those guys, and they're all brothers now. We're all together now. It's not there is no separation between them now. So I'm just grateful I got to go, and I remember walking around the city afterwards thinking, I don't know if I would have recovered if I was here in this concrete jungle. I mean, I just thought this would have eaten me alive being here, because I come from a small town called Orlando, Florida. So it was something to see, and I look forward to going back and seeing if I can't get those guys some big books to have where they can have some information to so they can share it with other people, because that's how it works. You give it away.
Dale,
So-
you were speaking Spanish at the end of the retreat, though.
I was.
You were saying a lot of Spanish. You were speaking Spanish. You learned some
That
over the
must
weekend.
have been subliminal.
Guys, Dale made a point, and Deyra was, the resources, the ability to do this. It does take some money, and some of you that have donated to us are given. This is where the money goes to, things like this. If it wasn't for people generous donations, this retreat in the Bronx would not have happened. Number one, wouldn't have happened at all. The team couldn't have come. It was all done from donations, and the legacy guide would not have been translated, and these guys wouldn't have been touched. It's just about money. And some of us, we've gotten where we're living in the go, and we have some means, and some can't come and volunteer and can't help us. But maybe what you could do is give us $10 or something, or give us a few dollars so that we could do it, if that's something that moves your heart. And we're all running an annual campaign right now. We're running a volunteer challenge, and you may get some emails from the team. But that is one thing we want to do. Is we saw they don't have big books, right, guys? There's no big books there. And I'm like, well, we got to get them big books. But, nobody's going to donate big books to us. If I go to the big book store and say, can you give us big books? They don't give us the big books. We have to buy them. So it's one of my, I basically told them we're going to get them big books. Right. Somehow we're going to get them. The pocket rockets, those red ones Dale was talking about. Lisa was looking them up too. But I want by next week or as soon as we can to get them big books, because they need them. It's one of the resources. Legacy Guide is great, but then going to do further study into the big book. But these things, guys, they don't have big books. How are they going to hear this program with it? They don't even have the book to read it on their own and figure it out. So, opportunities for us to be able to expand, and I just hope we're able to do it. We'll be able to do it, right?
Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing, Tom.
Yeah, sure.
Changing one life can change 10, 20 other lives, because that one person that we gave hope to can transfer that to other people, and that's how I see it. We just made history this over the weekend. I think changing 10 lives, 20, 30, how many total people you think were there? Like 50 people? I don't know.
Yeah. And that's hey Sonny, welcome Sonny to our show first. And I think a big book costs $15. Big books cost $15. So we might be able to get a little break if we buy a bunch of them. I was just going to say something too. What were you saying, Deyra, about being
how we change one life and then it spreads, just like hate, evil spreads, love and hope spreads the same way. When we change one life, we're changing more people, because now that one person is going to help others too.
It is. And, a comment for everyone, we talk about it being a family disease, right? We're very outspoken about saying that this program can help anybody. We're very quick to show the big book, and where the writings of our founders knew that they had a message that anybody could benefit from, whether they were in a substance or not, whether they were in a family and they weren't, or what they were. And guys, we saw it this weekend where the missionaries and the priests, the friars, sat in the retreat with us. And these guys who were not suffering from any substance abuse disorder were changed and rocked by this thing. They saw how their lives could absolutely benefit from just practicing these principles and these tools that we hand out to the addicted to improve their lives. I don't know about you, but I did a couple fifth steps with some people that were not addicts who had every bit of amount to share and felt like they were going to benefit as much as anybody. And that's a real message we want to get out to everybody. It works for anybody who gets their hands on this book and sits down and takes this program.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. The fifth step I did with one of the missionaries there, the young guy, was just as impactful for him, a moral inventory and a sharing of that moral inventory with somebody was so freeing for him, because he realized that these are the things that make us sick, these things in our moral inventory. And if you're not familiar with that term, get familiar with it. I mean, because it's our job as grown-ups to understand what drives us and how to stand up against that and how to be better people, and to be able to give that to somebody, that those tools, because most people are completely ignorant of what their feelings, how their feelings drive them, and where it can take you. Some people end up in a homeless shelter. Some people die. Some people just ruin their families, and the other people in those families suffer just like the addict does. It's just they don't have the label, the drug, the thing. They have other things. So benefits for all. We talk about our program. This is a family disease, and it has benefits for all. This program of recovery. So I would encourage you, if you're out there listening out there and whatever platform you're listening on today, to investigate, because this program will help you. And yes, I'm talking to you.
Everyone.
Everyone. I mean, it's.
And I think what we saw there was as much of a family separation situation as we see anywhere. Like, all of these guys were in homeless shelters. I heard a lot about my wife kicked me out, my this, my that, and that a big key to a lot of these guys getting back and starting their life over again is reconciling with whatever family, husbands, wives, daughters, kids. We saw those 8 steps. But then when that gentleman called his kids, and one other guy said, his wife, and restoring families is a big thing that happens. It's a result of this. And for these guys, I think it was going to be one of the big first steps, was to be able to bring this into their families. And maybe the next one, we have them all bring their families with them to it. We know what it's welcome, right? We'd say, bring them with it, bring them in. We'll get them all fixed too.
They all had a spiritual awakening from the steps, no doubt. Everyone in that retreat, including ourselves.
Yeah, it forever changed that. Being in that place forever changed my opinion of what those guys do, what those friars do, and what those missionaries do, and what they give to people. But the fact that they were meeting those guys' needs the best they could, but those guys were set free by what this program legacy we brought in there, and they recognized it, and they will use these tools because even when the priest was preaching the message at mass the next day, he used our words in his service to speak to these guys, and I just was floored by that he recognized the power and the value of what was going on there. So I'm waiting for the next. Can't wait for the next one. Sign me up.
We, all of us, I think, when we sat at some point in the weekend and realized that we had turned the entire outside world off while we were there, more so than I ever do at a retreat, much more so, actually. And I actually slept really good, better in that little tiny bed with nothing in the room. I slept soundly nights with no worry. You go and it's like the front line. It did remind me of what you hear people say when they're in like battle and war. It comes down to just a couple of things that you're worried about when you're on the front line. It's getting up and feeding yourself and staying alive that day. And these guys are one step away from being on the street, which is one step from being death. They really are. Some of them had come off the street just a few days before coming in and are just right on the edge. That's their next move, is the street, which might be death.
And some of them were sharing with me how dangerous it is there. In the 3 blocks away from where we were, people get stabbed all the time. It's just really dangerous, that area where they're at. So definitely they're close to not making it.
It was a bright, sunny Friday afternoon, seemed okay, and Dale needed something from the store. And he asked one of the guys, and it was only a block away. You could almost see the store from the shelter. And what did the guy say to you? Yeah, it's right there. And it's sketchy, though. This is somebody from in the shelter. Dale said, yeah, I think I'll go without.
I wasn't going over there.
Right. I never left the mission while we were there. We stayed inside the whole time, but it was really impactful. And we walk away from it back to our lives, and you say, wow, I almost envied it a little bit because of the simplicity of the life that they had, the mission, especially the missionaries. But they are given their life. Great respect, Dale, just like you said. Great respect. And learned a ton about what those guys do. Not a bad word to be said about those missionaries and those friars that are doing it. I couldn't do. I mean, we do some stuff, but I don't know that I could live there and do what they do. I just don't.
No. And they have a great sense of humor too. I'll leave it at that.
Right. We're gonna the result of the weekend too for Starbucks is we're gonna ask them if they can have I don't know coffee. And that's a little
You
inside
can add
joke.
that to the menu for the ones that don't know, right?
Because Deyra, who we thought was this sweet little not, or what she is, she was giving it out as well as she took it over the weekend. We had some fun over the weekend. I'd love for any of you too, anybody that's listening, if you want to help us, we need help, guys. Came to Believe Recovery. The message is movement of bringing the founder's message of life, of recovery to every person that we can be. We need help on every level. We need people to volunteer. We need people to come as leaderships. We need people to come and learn how to do this and take this message into these shelters and come with us on these missions. We just need money so we can do it. We need to just be able to cover expenses. That's all we're doing. Nobody's getting rich. We're just covering expenses and being able to go out and give these guys a jump start. They don't get a blank check. we go in, we give them a jump start, and in 9 times out of 10, they go out and they're able to take their lives back, and we can give them that that jump start because we got it. Somebody did it for us.
Yeah.
Right.
And
now we give it away, right?
yeah. And I was sharing with some of the guys in the shelter that Clarence Snyder, who started these retreats, was a homeless guy.
Yeah.
You know, when Dr. Bob, when he went to, they put him in the hospital to detox him. And after a few days, Dr. Bob came around and took him through the steps. And I mean, he had been homeless. He said he had one brown shoe and one black shoe. He didn't know how more ready he could be. He told Dr. Bob that. And it just struck me like, wow, this is like full circle. Because Clarence started these retreats, and here we are bringing this message to the homeless, and where they're at, meeting them where they're at. That's pretty remarkable for a guy from a small town in Orlando. Just remarkable to me.
And the one other element about this, guys, is that when we do our retreats, people choose to come. They've made a decision. They come, and they are at that one level closer. They're seeking something. And when we walked into the shelter, I'm sure that a bunch of them that were in there were not interested in recovery or doing this in a proactive manner. And they came. So allergies getting you, huh, Dale?
It's really warmed up down here in Orlando.
And so that was our other issue is how I watched somebody who wasn't even interested in didn't have any idea, turn to say, well, maybe I can overcome what it is that has me in brokenness. He'd never heard anything about it and wasn't even thinking about doing it because I think they just give up. They're there, right?
Or some of them thought they didn't even have an addiction. They're like, I don't have a problem. I don't have an addiction. By the end of the retreat, they were like, I know now that I have character defects, that I'm not perfect, that I have problems. We all have problems. So everyone could relate. So at the end, whether you had an addiction or not, you could use these tools to help your life and improve your life.
We didn't say it, but we felt like it. I was saying, how well can things be going if you're in a homeless shelter? Right? Something went wrong somewhere, right? And they were telling us that by the end. We weren't telling them,
Yeah.
A roundabout way to say, we're giving, no matter what's got you here, we're giving you an answer that will overlay every single person in that retreat that can help you and help you get out of this, starting to take steps to get your life back at whatever level. I can't wait to go back and see and hear the stories of people. You're right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it's hard to put it into words, Tom. Like, you're asking us questions, how it went, this and that. It's hard to put it into words for me. Like, it was just such a great experience. I've never experienced this in my life. So it changed me too. It changed them. It changed me. So amazing. I can't even express it.
Yeah. It is something to see hopelessness disappear, and hope come in, and because it's really simple. What we do is really simple. I work at NASA, but it's not rocket science. It's really simple, and it's just a matter of us doing it the way it was laid out for us to do it, and not way some guru says it's supposed to be done, but the way they did it when they wrote the book, what they were doing. So I would encourage you to seek it out. If you're struggling out there, seek it out. I don't struggle. Tom, do you struggle every day?
I do not struggle.
Deyra, do you struggle every day? No, it's not no longer a struggle. It's living life on life's terms. Life's terms aren't fair all the time. Well, you just have to live with it and move on. It's really amazing. 10, 11, and 12, then to go. That's it.
And that's good too. A lot of them asked me, what is that living in the go? What do you mean by that? Right? That's how far away from the door they were. That an expression like that had such lacked so much meaning. By the end of the weekend, they knew what it was, though. And they knew step 7 really worked.
Yeah. And what living one day at a time is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, when you do 10, you don't have any blocks. When you do it, so you can hear an 11, and then 12, you can give it away. And when you keep it that simple, it just works. It just works.
It just works. Well, I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I thank them again. But all of you that are out there, this team came in and they just floored me. I was completely humbled at the selflessness that everybody expressed. And not a complaint, not a word from any of the team that came in, who live in much better conditions normally than where we live. They came in and they did it. And I just thank you guys for joining me. It's not in doing this around the country, everywhere that we were going. And I know it's not the last time. Alicia was with us too, guys, and she'll be on again, as she's always on. But Alicia came from California, and Viv from the UK came. All's lives were changed. But thanks again for everybody who came and gave of their time and watched miracles. I think we all got more than we gave, if that's a fair statement. Deyra, can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Tom, for having us and for inviting us to this retreat. Thank you. More than grateful, more than thankful.
Yeah. And go Red Sox.
See, we couldn't get rid. We were 4 blocks from Yankee Stadium. That's where this mission was, guys. So I felt the warmth, of Yankee Stadium. And believe it or not, there was 2 Red Sox fans in that place.
Woohoo!
Which Dale capitalized on connecting with those guys that weekend. But they were the majority Yankee fans. I will say that. A couple of Met fans, we just feel sorry for them. But we were in Yankee country down there in the South Bronx. Anyway, hopefully we're going to be doing it. Not hopefully. I was already in contact, guys, with our guys in New York City to tell them how it happened, and they're going to start reaching out to the Catholic Church, who is the overall sponsor of the retreat center. It's a Catholic Church shelter, and there are other shelters that the Catholic Church runs through the city, and other religious organizations and the city that run shelters all through the city. And the message that we came in and did this, and we have this message that we can give to people, so at least they have the option to know that when they're ready to get sober, they're ready to get their life back. Of all the options there are for them to get better, we're one of them. And that's our goal, is to be there. So if that's your answer, we can answer the call and do it. And so I expect, guys, that we'll be in the New York City in the very near future, and then often, as we bring this message to the hurting and the lost. And then we'll be out there in LA with Deyra. And we're expanding in California, guys, the city team. We will be back there in February, I think, this year. So we're expanding there. And then we're going to be down in Missouri in January. We're going to be out in Indiana again. And yes, Kentucky, we're coming soon. And I'm sure we'll be back in Florida and all around the country. So thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Remember, January 6th through 8th is our virtual retreat. Deyra came to her first retreat, was a virtual retreat. And look where she is today, coming to a virtual retreat. She has been to on-ground retreats and is helping us, and stands recovered today and is living in the go. Don't think, yeah. So don't think it doesn't work. And right after that New Year's, get your friends. And if you're one of our leaders, we need leaders. It takes more people to do this. To do 5th steps. It's different than an on-ground retreat. So when you get those emails from Casera, encourage you to look at your calendar and block it off and say, yes, I'm going to go help those guys. Somebody took their time to help me. It's my turn to help them. Guys, remember, like we said, we have a message that is unique for the addict to hear. The missionaries and priests at the homeless shelter said they had not been able to break through anywhere near with these guys like we were in a weekend. It's because we share a message. We share an experience with them, as Dale was saying. And that experience can help open the doors, and it gives them that place where they can share, and they see our success. They feel like they can have a success too. All of you listening, if you've been through Came to Believe or are suffering and have recovered, we all have that mission. Seek whatever way you can, but I just encourage everyone to give back, give something that you have this unique ability to give. Thanks, Deyra, for being on today. I know it's morning there. You're off to work again. Dale, thanks for having you on. Again, I'm sure you'll be on again. And I just want to thank everybody else for being on. Next week, we're going to do Thanksgiving Day, guys. So we'll see you Thursday. If you guys are on here, it's going to be Thursday, 9 a.m. in Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, and 5 p.m. in the UK. Thanksgiving Day, Recovery Live at noon. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.